I got a question for you that I'm going to try to answer. Does horse manure help your garden grow? We're going to find out. But first, I'm going to show you my garden grown almost entirely with horse manure compost. Is pretty good for the garden. There's lots of I guess different livestock compost you can use. Cow is pretty common, chicken, and I do want to be 100% honest, we do have a little bit of chicken waste compost in here and chicken bedding, old straw, but most of our garden is horse manure that's been composted. Now most of the time our garden has compost that has sat for at least 6 months. And this is true. I have found that the next year, the soil is even better. So let me go ahead and show you what horse manure composted after a year looks like. It's nice and rich. Look at that amazing soil. This is composted soil that is brought to you by our horses. It's just nice, man, it's so good. Here's some more soil. Just look how amazing that soil is. And that is coming from an area that has pretty sandy soil actually. A lot of times people ask if you can use horse manure that's fresh. In general, people like to wait because horse manure is pretty high in nitrogen. It's not as high in nitrogen as some other livestock compost, but it does have a lot of nitrogen. But I have found certain plants really love fresher compost, like pumpkins and garlic love horse manure compost. Potatoes do great, squashes, gourds. Even my tomato plants, this is my best year with tomato plants I've ever had. Part of that is because I have honeybees, and part of that is that I finally have really good soil. The main method we use is we just pile our horse manure in a big pile, and it sits there for sometimes up to a year before I use it. Last fall, what I did was actually I started a horse compost pile in the middle of my garden after the fall season, so around November, and I just had a giant 5-foot pile of horse manure, and it sat there for about 6 months until I tilled it into my garden. So every year I have really great soil. Now a lot of people say that the problem with horse manure is that they don't fully digest seeds, which is true. There are some seeds in the manure, but what you can do is you can cover that with a tarp and hot compost it to kill the seeds. Now I do have a lot of weeds in my garden this time of year. That is not necessarily from the horse compost. I really don't think much of it is, but a lot of it is from mulching. So I'm only really doing a lot of serious mulching in my perennial garden. I have landscape fabric, and then I've mulched it. So I want to show you what my mulch garden looks like, and there's virtually no weeds, and I'm using horse compost as well. So as you can see, if you do a good job of composting and a good job of mulching, you really don't have to worry about the weeds. My garden thrives on horse manure. Luckily we have horses, but a lot of times if you know someone that has horses, they have so much horse manure they're not gonna know what to do with, especially if they have more than 1 or 2 horses. So most of the time you can get it for free or very cheap, or maybe you can even barter for some horse manure. You can get some horse manure in the fall, and in the spring you can give them a little bit of your harvest to say thank you. So hopefully this puts to rest if horse manure is good for your garden or not. I've been using it for years and I love it. It's a great way of turning a waste product on the farm literally into something very valuable, black gold basically. So I just can't say enough about it. Horse manure is good for the garden.